Wait, did Deadpool 3 just go full She-Hulk? You never go full She-Hulk. Let's discuss.
Our content sucks. Our content sucks.
I watch so you don't have to.
All I'm offering is the truth, nothing more.
Now, before anyone gets triggered and starts writing angry comments in the comments section, I'm going to start off by saying this. I understand that Deadpool is a self-aware character who typically breaks the fourth wall just like She-Hulk. I know that Deadpool has done it better and certainly way cooler in live action than She-Hulk. But just because you are aware of the problems and you are openly talking about them in either lines of dialogue or promotion for the project, that doesn't mean that it's clever or cheeky enough to make me forget that those problems very much do exist.
Move this man!
No, sir, the sleight of hand magic show you are trying to pull right now with this movie is not going to work on me. Because we've quite literally seen this tactic before, most notably with She-Hulk. Now, some might be asking, what exactly are you talking about? Well, Ryan Reynolds himself released a disclaimer for the upcoming Deadpool and Wolverine film. And before anyone says this, I understand that it was meant to be a joke. I just think it's a joke that would land a lot better if it were told under different circumstances. Consider the current state of the MCU and the fact that this movie is now a part of the MCU as I read this disclaimer. We're very excited to be joining you July 26th, but we should set the table correctly. This film is as paper thin as a sequel to Battlefield Earth. We're mostly going to beat each other senseless, make enemies with Disney, tell a few dick jokes, and make a few jokes at my expense. Make a lot of jokes at Hugh's expense.
Go fuck yourself, pretty boy.
And completely sidestep Marvel's mandated after-credits sequence, which if you haven't figured it out yet, is always just a commercial for another movie, which will invariably end with a commercial for another movie. So sit back, relax, let us lower your IQ, and raise your heart rate while we travel to a vapid dreamland, a place where grown men and grown women walk around in tights and act like it's not a giant cultural cry for help. This is cinema. Now, obviously, he's in character here. He's trying to take the piss out of the typical MCU criticisms that you hear from people like me. And as I said, if this was 2016 and Deadpool wasn't under the Disney banner, I might have found this humorous. The issue, my friends, is that this is clearly a joke that was approved by Disney.
That makes sense.
It's clearly being done as either a form of misdirection or with the intent to make people believe that this isn't going to be the same MCU nonsense we typically get. And you know what? The fact that this movie was allowed to be R-rated and the fact that they're allowed to get away with a few things is a good thing. The problem for me will always be, will some of these problems legitimately creep their way into Deadpool 3? The biggest issue with She-Hulk's attempt at a humorous commentary on the sad state of the MCU was that that commentary is contained within a show that is literally the living embodiment of everything that is wrong with the current MCU. So in that aspect, it kind of took away from the cleverness of it, and it certainly wasn't the dig at the MCU critics as much as they thought it was. Because the show quite literally validated all of our criticisms and did absolutely nothing about them.
Man, I'm tired of being right.
So that's where this thought process comes from people like me who feel like the MCU is never going to change for the better. You are telling us that you know what the problems are, albeit in a comedic way, and yet you refuse to do anything about them when the joke has finally run its course. And it feels like they just took that same shtick they used in She-Hulk and are now using it to sell people on Deadpool and Wolverine. I can see the comments already. You must be fun at parties. This is not about me not allowing myself to have a good time. This is about me having a different set of standards when it comes to judging whether or not I have a good time. It's about how this type of entertainment just really isn't appealing to me anymore. The self-aware thing has been done to death in Hollywood recently, and it's never anywhere near as clever as the movie typically wants it to be. You could say the original Deadpool films and movies like Scream did it right once upon a time. But we are some time removed from the era where things like that worked. If you haven't noticed, people are growing tired of seeing the same old shit when they go to the movie theater.
It's true.
So when you put it in that context, and you are quite literally telling everyone that this movie could potentially be the same old shit, it seems like a questionable decision. Joking or not, is it the right move? I'm skeptical. Will this movie have a paper-thin plot? Most likely, because that's what I've come to expect from the modern MCU, and specifically, their films contained within this multiverse saga. Will there be jokes made at Hugh Jackman's expense? Probably. But that's a fine line to walk when we've had so many iconic characters return recently and be turned into a joke, and not in a satisfying way. It's bad enough that you brought him back and he's now being whored out to do beer commercials.
Bitch.
I understand it's part of the game, but it does make his return feel a lot less special. Will this movie be one big commercial for the next movie, which will most likely be a Secret Wars-esque team-up? Absolutely. Do I have any interest in seeing another movie like that? Not really. I much prefer it when movies can stand on their own, and that's something that the MCU has been horrible at in recent years. Will this movie most likely be all flash and no substance, and one of those films that people tell me I need to turn my brain off to enjoy? Probably. If I personally have to turn my brain off to enjoy a movie, then there's not a lot contained within that movie for me to enjoy in the first place. Ryan Reynolds was right about one thing, unfortunately. This has been cinema as we know it over the past several years, and we have the MCU largely to thank for that. Whether this ends up being just another joke, and the movie is nothing like this, or this ends up being spot on, is actually irrelevant. The reality is, the joke only works if the audience is 100% in on it.
Ha ha, very funny, motherfucker.
And I do believe that jokes like this, at this point where we find ourselves, could have a polarizing reaction. Whether this joke lands or not could be the difference between this movie being a worthy successor to the original Deadpool films, or another cringe fest like She-Hulk.
Y'all be cool. Nah.